Welcome to WoodTalk, turning woodworkers into knitters since 2007. Here are your hosts, Marc, Shannon, and Matt.
Well, what's shaking, everybody? It's episode 581.
I'm shaking, Marc.
Yeah, look at you. I see you. You're bobbing back and forth. You're a wobbling weeble. All right.
Set the tone.
Yeah, that's good. We needed
Getting
something
character
like that.
or something, I think is what it's
The breathing sound effects were good, too. I kind of like that.
Those are fun. All right, so it's show 581, and on today's show, we're talking about making stains suck less, cutting angled tenons, and what to do with all that ash. Woo! I like that.
Ooh.
I like that wording there. All that and more coming up, but first we want to let you know that this show is proudly sponsored by you, as well as a new sponsor, which we're going to talk more about later. Not now.
Later?
We're going to talk later.
Who is it, Marc?
I cannot
I
tell
wanna
you.
know now.
Stay tuned.
I can't scroll further down the notes to check who it was.
It's going to be a surprise to everybody, including you guys.
Wow.
All right. So, Matt, why don't you tell them how they
Including
can
you
support
guys.
the show if they want to?
He would totally do that, too, wouldn't he, Matt?
I
He'd
know.
just be like,
That is
show
something
up
I
and
would do.
record, guys.
Surprise.
Lock us
Good
out of
news,
the
guys.
notes.
Just so you know.
Control freak.
FYI. Don't worry
That's
about
how
it.
I am. What are
Thanks
you
for
gonna
showing
do?
up today. All right. If you want to help support the show, you can absolutely totally do so. You can go to patreon.com/woodtalk and sign up to become a patron of the show. Woo. This time we're thanking Bob Baker and Daniel Sheridan. And if you are a patron, you can also get access to an ad-free version, and you'll have that with all the awkward pauses and all that stuff. So,
Like the one we just had?
like that awkward pause, that might be there, it might not be. Who knows? Depends on what Todd wants to do. You can do that again. That's patreon.com/woodtalk. Thank you,
Yeah.
patrons.
Well, Todd got yelled at for doing too much editing at one
By
point
who?
a while
By
ago.
you?
No, by comment.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yes.
He, as an editor, he is thinking like an editor, and he wants to cut the dead air and stuff like that. And I didn't even realize he was doing it because I didn't pay that much attention. And then they're like, yeah, there's no natural flow to the conversation because all of the gaps, just like almost every YouTube video out there, it's cutting out all the ums, it's cutting out all the space between words. And he was kind of doing a little bit of that, putting so much more work into the show than it really needed or deserved, frankly. So yeah, he got spanked on the back of the hand for doing that. Now edits are much easier.
I mean, I think people come to the show for a little bit of patented Matt awkward dead air.
Of course.
That's all I
I mean,
have.
that's
my
part of
only
being a
go-to
Matt
move.
on the show. You got to have a thing, whether it's a chortle or awkward dead air.
Yeah. Well, I
part
think there's a big
it's in the
difference
Matt
between
contract.
a talking head YouTube presentation and a conversation between three people. And you cut out all the empty space, and suddenly it's not a conversation anymore, and it feels more like a script, and it gets really weird. So
Script.
anyway,
All
right.
Ah.
all right, let's get into what's on the bench. I got to tell you guys, epoxy sucks.
Is that because it's an adhesive and not a building material, Marc?
It didn't suck when it was an adhesive, but now that it's a building material, it sucks.
Yeah.
There is definitely an art to it, no doubt about it. I got involved in a pour that was really just a favor for some neighbors, literally like right down the road from the shop. And they found out that we do woodworking. They had this project that was already ongoing.
Give you epoxy.
Yep. So they gave me a couple gallons of epoxy and said, help, please.
You know what to do with this.
Yeah, you should know what this is. So it was basically a big old mantle. And they had found this piece of wood in their basement when they moved into this house. And they were like, hey, we're redoing the basement. This thing would make a really cool mantle to go over there. They're video game fans, so they wanted to carve something that's out of Breath of the Wild, a Zelda game that came out a couple years ago, maybe more than a couple of years ago now. And it looked pretty cool. And they had, I guess, the builder use whatever tools he had to kind of make this thing. So it was pretty rough looking. I'm like, all right, so you want a blue river through this. The problem comes in where the pour is going to be on multiple dimensions because it's a river, but with multiple waterfalls. So imagine in the front edge and the side, they dug in a little bit more. So if you were to pour anything into that top river, it's just going to pour out of the waterfall. I had to come up with a way that we could fill those areas, which kind of become like little troughs of epoxy that have to fill up until the rest of the river can be filled up. Right, so I'm going through this. I don't do this that often, right? So I know that everybody likes to use tuck tape for this stuff. And I know I want to, belt and suspenders this thing just in case something leaks. So I put like hot glue on there. I put a little piece of plastic. I actually used some shelf liner stuff, like the thicker plastic you would put on wire shelving to kind of give it a little bit more structure in a pantry. That's where ours is from. So I had some of that scrap material.
Stole it out of the pantry.
Yeah. So I cut... Nicole, we don't need this, right?
Just dump all the stuff on the ground and all right.
Going to work. See ya. So I cut those to size. I thought I had this thing down. I did hot glue as a firm border that's holding that piece of plastic in there. And then I did tape around there and multiple layers of tape. Just like, okay, if this thing goes, I'm going to make sure this is taken care of. So I got real confident as I did the first pour, and I started to look at these troughs fill up, and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is actually working.
This is great. I love epoxy. Yeah. This is great.
I love epoxy. I'm having the time of my life right now. So I was like, all right, I filled the troughs, and then I'm like, hey, maybe I should just start the fill in a river. I don't want to go all the way to the top, but let me at least go to the point where the waterfall trough meets the level of what's in the river. And I did that. And I sat at the shop for like another hour. Everything looked good. And then suddenly I see a little bit of a leak on one side. So I'm like, all right, let me get over there real quick. And it leaked under the tape. And I added a few more rows of tape, like that thing where you're chasing the leak. Mm-hmm. So I added more tape. And then it looked like it was sealed up. And I'm like, cool. All right, I feel comfortable leaving the shop today. And then I did leave. And then when I came back, all the epoxy was on the floor. Now, if you have never worked with this stuff, it thankfully does take long to cure. These deep pour epoxies have a long cure time. So it was on my rubber pads and had gone through the cracks between the puzzle piece cracks on those laser cut floor pads and then seeped under the pads. So it wasn't just like, an easy cleanup. I had to pull all the pads up. I'm scraping all the partially cured epoxy with a scraper, putting that into the garbage, and then trying to use like white vinegar to help kind of dissolve and pick up the rest of the stuff. It was an absolutely miserable experience. And our
new sponsor is Total Boat Epoxy. Welcome to the show.
Thankfully, yeah. That's a great segue. And it wasn't Total Boat. It was a brand, actually, that was the cool thing. They bought this stuff. They were going to do the pour themselves and they didn't have the confidence to do it. And
you did.
No, I didn't. I did tell them I have no experience with this. I said, for me, epoxy is a glue. This is all new. I will try this, but you have to have low expectations. And I am so glad that I did it, though, because I was texting the lady and I'm like, look, this is what happened, but better in my shop than in your basement. Like, this would have been a nightmare.
Or your living room.
Or your living room, right? Like, this would have been a nightmare for them to try to attempt. So here's the good thing, spoiling the ending. After that leak was done, of course, with a leak like that, it's not all going to go away. What actually wound up happening was what was there, the trace amount that was left, really sealed everything up.
Yeah,
and
surprise,
I think that
surprise.
It was a major part of the problem, is the fact that I thought it was a piece of Douglas fir. Then when I started to carve it, I'm like, I've worked with a lot of Western red cedar and I could smell it from a mile away. And as soon as I started to cut into that stuff, I'm like, I didn't say that. I said, oh, poo. It's Western red cedar. And it didn't even occur to me how thirsty that stuff is. So each waterfall, if you think about it, you make that cut on the front face of that mantle. Each waterfall, the ends are end grain. And those are very thirsty end grain portions where the epoxy essentially just went into the end grain and then with like capillary action went behind the glue and then behind the tape. And then the tape just said, all right, I'm going to let go with that wet epoxy there.
See you later.
And it just fell forward. And then that's why everything poured out. So once that process happened, it kind of did what I should have done in the first place. It sealed the end grain. It sealed the pores. And then I was able to retape it and then do the follow-up pour. And everything, at least now, seems to look like it's okay. So
seal coat. Next time.
Yeah, basically was a seal coat. So there's that. And then when I went to do the second pour, when my confidence was back up again, I accidentally put my drill into high speed with the little paddle beater mixer in a little cup. And I think this thing is meant to be used in at least a gallon size or like a 5-gallon bucket. And I just barely touched the trigger and all over me. My favorite cycling shirt.
Nice.
I got a Back to the Future cycling shirt with like the DeLorean and a bike on the back. It's the coolest thing. epoxy all the way down.
Nice.
And so I was pretty mad at myself because that was such a stupid thing to do.
One of your first videos, you had like that salad dressing stain on your shirt. Yeah, it's the same exact story. Like, I went to go shake the salad dressing, the lid wasn't on all the way, and I got a salad dressing spot.
It all comes back full circle.
I don't know what video that was. But
it was video number 2.
It's a very permanent memory in my mind for some reason. I don't know why.
It was a shop tour video. I think it was our second video we ever did. And yeah, Nicole didn't put the lid on the dressing. And that's the good thing is we don't eat the same salad dressing anymore. So my lids are always on. So anyway, guys, not a great experience. This is not the epoxy's fault. I mean, let's be clear. This was me. But I screwed up and I learned a lot and I filmed it all. So
nice.
So this will definitely be a little bit of I don't know. It's like a vloggy style video, but hopefully people will enjoy watching me.
Ever done?
It may be. Watch me squirm. And again, I don't feel any better about epoxy after this project. I can tell you that much. Like this may be the last time I say yes to something.
But now you know all the things. But now you're so like talented at it.
Sure. There are people who not only are good at this, but also love it. Like, and if they love it, then I'm going to let them keep doing it so that I don't have to. That's the way I look at it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, here's the other thing. This mantle, Western Red Cedar, it's a huge mantle. Like it's probably about 5 or 6 inches thick. It's like 8 inches deep and about a full 8 foot long. I could lift it. It's not hard to lift. It's Western Red Cedar. Now with it full of epoxy,
I'm sure it's heavy.
It's much, much heavier.
I was going to say that epoxy is a lot heavier than the Western Red.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's now more, it's like Darth Vader's more machine than man. This thing is more plastic than wood. And I make that joke today because it's May 4th.
It is Star Wars Day.
Oh, geez, it is.
Very important.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So anyway, guys, epoxy, not a fan. The other thing about
all that, didn't we know that already?
I mean, confirming.
Not news.
Yeah, someone did message me and are like, "Hey, I thought you guys rail against epoxy. Why are you doing a pour?" And it's like, I'm doing a favor, is what I'm doing. And
actually, you didn't even get paid, probably.
No, this one there is going to be a small fee. I definitely didn't charge enough for what I just put myself through.
I believe it.
So these are things that we already know. Marc continues to do the things that he doesn't want to do, like write another book, pour epoxy, but can always be forced to do those things if you pay him enough because he's a
I have a price. So, I always have a price.
Yeah, it's been kind of an ongoing theme over the last 15 years we'll be doing this show.
Got to make a living, man. Got to do what you got to do. All right, so epoxy's now cleaned up, and I'm going to move on with life. Matt, what about you?
I was going to say, I believe my close personal friend Jimmy DeResta says it best. You go to school on your first one.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
We haven't mentioned him in a long time. There you go.
No, we haven't.
In Marc's case, he drops out on his second one.
I dropped out of school.
That's it. He's done.
I
learned everything I need to know. I'm like, yep, this ain't for me.
I'm too old to learn stuff. I'm done.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've been kind of finishing up the kitchen stuff. That's been sort of my side focus the last few weeks, trying to get through the last few videos and get them fully produced so I don't have to even think about them anymore.
Nice.
Which is super great. So I was working on the last of the cabinetry videos, which was like all the last drawers and little doodad things that had to happen before all the cabinetry stuff was done. I started that video in October, I think. I believe it was October I started that one. And I wrapped it last week. So that was, it's one of those things. You're like, okay, I shot most of it. 90% of the video is shot. I'm waiting on like 3 little things to happen so I can shoot the last little bits, little segments, and call those segments shot so they can be edited and dropped into the whole video. So that was like making some drawers and installing some drawer fronts, and that was the pots and pans rack where like all the pans are vertically in there and you pull it out and they're all in there. Like I got to the point with this project where I'm like, is this video out? Did I show this part yet? I don't remember if I have shown this yet because it's been so long and there's so many videos. I don't really remember what's in what video anymore.
So wait, you're just now at that point? That seems like something for the last 3 years would have been an ongoing problem of timing. What's been released? What did I talk about? And where am I now?
It used to be fine because they would only take like a month or two to produce. When they start getting to the point where it's been like 3, 4, 5, 6 months of that video being in production, I'm like, I can't even remember, because at the same time, I'm also producing other videos for the kitchen and for other things happening in the shop or outside for the sawmill or whatever. I'm like, there's too many things in my head now. I'm like trying to remember where I left certain videos off. So I'm trying to get done with all this kitchen stuff so I don't have to think about it anymore. So I can leave space for other videos.
Yeah.
So
well, you normally don't have one ongoing long project like that. Like each project kind of happens, films, done, move on to the next one. This ongoing thing, that seems tough.
I typically have some overlap. Like there's usually 2 to 3 that are in production at the same time, but not like this.
Yeah.
Not like this.
Yeah. Nice.
It's a bit much. So I have that one I released this past week. I finished the last little bit of the edit, and I'm like, okay, I'm releasing it right now. I don't care. It's going out, done. Get it behind me. Mm-hmm. And I had the backsplash video, which I got most of it installed. And I swear the worst part about this whole kitchen thing is the decisions. There's way too many decisions to make.
Yeah.
And you're like, the fatigue is just so real.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't even want to make any more decisions. It's like we spent, when did we decide we didn't like the tile? Last May is when we decided we don't like the tile we picked out originally. And then we picked this one finally in January. Mm-hmm. So we spent however long that is, 7 months trying to decide on a new tile. We picked this one. And now it's like, okay, now you got to start going through the decisions of like, okay, do we do how we finish the courses off? Because now with the old tile, it was one size, and I planned everything to be built so that they all end on full courses. Mm-hmm. So the top of the range hood ends on a full course. The top of the cabinets would have ended on a full course. But now, like, do you come up and you got this little sliver, or do you do something else on top, like a soldier course or something? So now we're like, okay, do we like the soldier course? Because that's an option too, or do we do
everything is a decision?
Do we do some little thin things?
Pour a thin blue line of epoxy.
I could do that.
In the middle.
I've got some. If you,
I even suggested to Lindsay that she can take some of her clay and her glazes behind me and make some custom tiles to complete the row.
There you go.
She's kind of on the fence about that one too. Yeah, I think it's too much for her, like, to be responsible for if she doesn't like it or not. And then when we get done with all the install, we gotta pick a grout color. And I'm like, God, I don't want to pick anything anymore. And risk that we don't like it or whatever. So there's that. It's just been, the whole thing is like that. Every single little step of the way, someone's making a decision about something.
Well, and I mean, you guys are doing a custom kitchen, which is hard enough, but it's a different level of custom kitchen. I think it's harder
because you can literally do anything.
Yeah, you have so many possibilities. And not to whip this back to like shop talk, but that's how I feel about shop setups sometimes, is if you give me an open blank space, I find it so much harder to design a smooth flowing shop with that versus put me in a space like Shannon's garage, or put me in a space like one of my old garages where there's obstacles, there's challenges to work around, and I could solve problems for those things. But like a complete blank slate of starting a kitchen project from scratch, down to every color, every trim choice, everything, no one's making decisions for you, that's tough, man. I'd be fatigued on that too.
Consider the level of craftsmanship that Matt, that you already put into this, and like the grain matching in the cabinetry and things like that, to get this far, and then phoning it on the tile.
The architects give you the whole elevation and like how everything is supposed to kind of look from the exterior, just like in black and white, basically. And it's like, okay, take it from there. And then you start learning, like, okay, what looks good on a drawing might not be perfectly how it's going to work in real life. Mm-hmm. A good example of that is like around our sink. We had the architect spec the countertop to end squarely on the corner of the sink. But when the countertop guys came in, they said, well, what we usually do to make it more flowing is copy the radius of the back of the sink onto the front. So it kind of curves in and out around. Well, then that messes up the cove molding, how that comes into the sink.
Sure.
So now because the cove mold extends past the line of where the countertop is now. So you put the cove molding in square, you see the top of the cove molding looking down on it from the top of the counter. So you're like, okay, now I got to put a radius on the end of the cove mold, but the cove mold also has to get scribed to the sink because the sink is inside the line of the cabinets because there's that scribe piece because of the farm sink. So I'm like, okay, now I got to make a piece of cove mold that has an inside miter on one side and is perfectly scribed on the other side and is radiused on top. I'm like,
It's time to caulk.
And then,
That's
then
all
you,
you need.
then you caulk it in when you're done. But it's like, this is,
There we go.
I'm like, That's the kind of stuff I was like, had on that last video. I'm like, I just got to get through this whenever and just be done with it.
Yeah.
So choose your grout color to match your caulk color, and you're in good shape.
Well, the caulk is white, so I don't really. And
Well, there you go.
the
what are you
tiles
complaining
got this
about?
kind of cream color and it's varied. So it's also, I picked the hardest tile to install. I've never done tile before, but the tile we picked is all handmade, all different, all varied. So there is no uniformity at all in any of the tiles. So your grout lines kind of have to hide all of the weirdness of the tiles to make them all kind of look like they're straight.
Yeah.
So there's that. Because like every tile video I watched, like I'm doing a subway backsplash, like I just put the thin set or your mastic up, whatever you're using, and just literally slap the tiles on the wall, throw your spacers in, just go. You can't do this with this tile because they're all different colors too. So you can't just randomly throw them up. You gotta make sure they lay out first, so they look kind of random. So you have to do a layout first, a full layout, to make sure that it looks good before you start slapping them up there. And you get them up there. Every single grout line is different, and you're setting the grout lines with wedges, not spacers, not consistent spacers, to get them like
So you could tweak it a
cocked
little
the
bit.
right way, just to kind of make them look kind of good along a laser. So at least the line of them looks kind of straight.
Sounds a little bit like working wood.
Oh, and they were all too thick. That was the other thing too.
Oh, geez.
So I had to resaw them all.
I
Every
remember
single
that
tile.
video. That looked
Yes.
fun.
It was
I gotta
not
say,
the worst thing I've done.
epoxy's not sounding so bad now.
Yeah, right?
I'll deal with a little bit of epoxy on my shirt
Great.
to not be doing that.
It was just really wet. Like it was
Yeah.
just wet.
Yeah,
It's
wet
like
saws,
you're in
they
the
seem
spray
like they
the whole
would-
time.
it's about fun for about 5 seconds. And then you're like, all right, I'm getting a shower as I'm doing
it's
this
a
work.
shower with like clay dust in it. So like
Yeah.
everything is just a crust afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
and if you actually dry off. It was, but I did it.
Wow.
It took me less time to resaw all those tiles than it did to sand the first coat of primer on all the doors. So just for people like thinking about how much time because what's interesting
I'm not
to
sure
me,
that that's a favorable analysis, though. Like,
but here's the thing.
That sounds
I've been
like it
doing
sucks.
mundane, ridiculous tasks this whole time,
Yeah.
but this is the one that stuck with people. They're like, holy crap, that's too far. Where I'm like, this is faster than a lot of the things you see me do that are
Yeah.
way more tedious and involved.
But
this
you're
this
resawing
somehow
tile.
relates.
I think it's
Yeah,
just
right?
an unusual thing to see someone do, is to
Right,
take a
it just-
tile and resaw
yeah.
the thickness of the tile.
Yeah, that doesn't
I'm a
compute.
woodworker. I resaw stuff every day. Not every day.
Yeah.
Like most projects, there's resawing involved.
What
right?
you need is a tile cutting bandsaw, and then you're in business.
There we go.
I don't want to be in business. That's the problem. Don't put me in business.
I
I'll
wanna
be
be
out
done
of
with
business.
tile.
Keep me out of this business.
No more tile.
I don't blame
There's
you.
a
man.
reason I'm not in this business.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Shannon, I hope you have something less labor intensive on your bench.
Yeah, quite a bit. Building wedding gifts and Mother's Day gifts, so a lot of small little items. And I've used Rubio before. Well, the only time I've used it has been just like the tabletop. So like a natural coat on the table and then some sort of painted or heavily pigmented finish on the bottom. So every time I've used Rubio, it's been that like total like YouTube explanation where it's just a big flat surface and you just pour it on and scrub it in. And I decided, well, you know, I recently went to the International Builders Show, fortunately named IBS show in Vegas, and ended up with a huge, like a whole stack of little ketchup packets of Rubio.
Samples?
Yeah, here's one. So they're little like 6
Nice.
milliliter samples. It's great, you know, free swag from the show. And it is, so I'm thinking, well, I've never done this in anything other than a big flat surface. So how well is this going to work when I'm like rubbing it in all the nooks and crannies of a box or a flower vase or something like that? And actually, I'm becoming more and more a fan of the finish, because it's incredible how far 6 millimeters stretches.
Yeah.
I'm taking a ketchup packet worth of finish, and I was able to finish like 2 entire, you know, just picture like keepsake boxes, flower vases, built couple of little planters for like an herb garden, all like small little, probably 9-inch square type projects. Can finish 2 of them with 6 milliliters of Rubio. That stuff is really cool. but I went out and got a bunch of like 1/4-inch Scotch-Brite pads and just cut them up into little squares, little like 2-inch squares. It's like super fun. It's like the easiest.
It's easy mode.
Seriously, like they've taken all of the skill out of finishing. And just like when you think the pad is dry, you just kind of, and you see like a slight dry spot or not quite so, I don't want to say wet spot when it comes to Rubio, but it's an area that's not quite as saturated. Just going over it with that Scotch-Brite pad, it is so amazing how far you can stretch that to the point where Rubio is not a sponsor. So I'm saying don't buy Rubio, just go to trade shows and get the little ketchup packets.
That's all you need.
I have like 10 of these things left. I could probably finish a bed now.
Well, the great part of that too is at least you're not opening a big can, which you only had to use a small amount of, and you have a skin over issue and stuff like that. Like individual packets is great. Yeah.
So you just like, you bend it and there's a seam in the back and you just, squeegee it out. And I was literally in 2 of the herb gardens. I just kind of a little squeegee in that one, a little squeegee in that one, and just,
nice.
Just go to town with it. It was
Does
great.
it open from the top too so you could dip your nuggets?
No. I suppose I could slice it open. I could do that. Boo. Good.
Boo. So I'm curious though, because you and I kind of have the same opinion on like these hard wax oil finishes and how it's like finishing on easy mode. What did you think of the finish itself? What, like, do you like it, and how do you compare it to? I know you've used a lot of shellac in the past, things like that.
I mean, I think it's got to have it. It has its place. It's a very recognizable look. Like, I don't know, maybe I imagine most woodworkers can look at it and go, oh, that's a hard wax oil finish. It's just got that super, super close to the wood, very matte kind of feel to it. And I think that has its place. I really like using that in small keepsake type stuff, boxes, planters, basically what I'm doing here. Furniture, not so much. I do like a little bit more of a build. I like being able to play with the sheen where necessary.
Right.
So, and I don't think they're nearly as durable for a high stress item. I mean, I know they're super easy to repair. They're less about the durability and more about, hey, if you screw it up, just rub some more on, which is great. I think it is easy mode. It's perfect, not even for the DIY market, but like the step back from the DIY market, like the I want a DIY market. So yeah, they're super, super easy, but no, I don't think I would use it on, I wouldn't use it on like a table. Maybe I have on a side table, but even then it was just the top. So yeah, I definitely think the look is really cool. It also kind of lends itself towards minimalist design. If you have any layer of ornamentation or molding or something like that, you need a little gloss. I feel like you need a little build to pull that off. Yeah. But the 2 planters I made are very kind of Japanese style design. Lot of square edges and things like that. I made a kind of this planter. It basically uses a test tube for like a bud vase. And it's very mid-century kind of Scandinavian design. So very minimalist to begin with, very close to the wood kind of feel. And I think that's kind of why I reached for them because it was free and it was there. But like, I thought, hey, bonus is it kind of works with the aesthetic. But like if I'm building arts and crafts furniture or something, I just don't know that it would work that way.
Yeah. So. At the show, did you do like I used to do on Halloween and like take your glasses off and come back to the booth with your bag and get a couple extra samples?
No. See, it's a good idea though. Trick or treat. Weren't you just here? No, I'm Buzz Lightyear. Wait,
nope. I'm a different Matt. I almost called you Matt. I did call you Matt. Let's pretend that didn't happen.
I specifically went to IBS, like researching additional finishing products. Okay. As someone who is like in charge of developing a line of finished cladding and decking and stuff like that. So like I can talk to these people about, hey, we have a finishing room with these machines running and we're running this many linear feet, per hour. And this is kind of what we're looking for. And they're like, their eyes are as wide as saucers. Hey, this is we're hardly a big fish. But like when you're talking, for example, to a company like Rubio, or for that matter, I meant the General Finishes guys, this is not Benjamin Moore. This is not Sherwin-Williams. These are more boutique type finishing suppliers. So when you start talking to somebody and you're saying, yeah, we're running, 100,000 linear feet through this mill a day, they're like, whatever you want, sir. Like, here,
yeah, that's substantial.
Have some sample packets. And I'm like, and I even told one of the Rubio guys, like, they have this new product called DuraGrit, which is an exterior product that literally has a bit of grit in it. It's meant to be non-slip for decking and stuff like that. And, typical Rubio, they've got like 36 different colors. And they're actually really cute. I think they're all on my desk at work, but they're in these little tiny jars that are literally like an inch in diameter and like, an inch and a half tall. They're very adorable. And the guy's like, well, here, try this out. And I kind of looked at him like, you do realize that when I develop a line, I have to put finish on like 19 different species and like a bunch of different profiles and textures. And he's like, all right, well, here's my card. Email me after the show. And I did. He sent me gallons of this stuff.
Oh, geez.
Gallons. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I've got this stack of gallon cans in all the colors of DuraGrit. I'm like, all right, that's awesome. It's really good. So yeah, if the little ketchup packets ended up back in my shop, you understand why.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I actually used DuraGrit on an outdoor table. I quite like it. I was really surprised. You got to like the color because it is almost like a diluted paint. But durability-wise, it seems like on this table, it seems like it's holding up pretty well.
So how long? I didn't know you'd used it. I know the product is relatively new. How long ago did you use it?
It was last year sometime when it first came out. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's been a full year. I'd have to look at the video.
It's hard to say. They were so like, it's the newest, hottest, greatest thing since
they came out with
Rubio's ever made.
Yeah, just recently they got real excited about their new colors. So I got even some promotional stuff for the new colors. It was kind of funny. So they sent us some new colors and sample packs, and then they sent a swatch bundle, unfinished. And they want you to finish each one of the little swatches, so you have all the color samples. And I'm like, I ain't doing that. You got to be kidding me.
I ain't doing that.
It's got time for that.
You want to send a swatch out? Put the colors on the swatch and send it out.
That's freaking brilliant. I'm going to start doing that to architects now.
There you go.
It's a DIY thing. We figured you'd be into that.
I was really surprised.
You get a feel for how it applies, and all that stuff.
The funny. One of the reasons that I think I have so many of these is. They've got the brochure that has all their colors on it, and I've got this huge stack of these little ketchup packets. Not one of these colors are in the brochure. So I think they're all like last year's. This is all the old stuff that like, just move that at the show. We'll get rid of it that way.
Yeah.
Like, this is cocoa, and this is nowhere on the brochure. So I'm thinking it takes finishing to a whole new risk level. You have no idea what you're opening.
Well, wait till they send you the little swatch thing. You'll be good. June of 2024. So last summer was when I applied that finish.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we have some kickback. Shannon, do you want to take the first one?
Sure. It's from Joe. It's entitled Operator Error. It says, I reached out asking advice for my POS Graz number 5 bench plane. I remember that. I thought I'd done everything. Insert wrong buzzer here. There's this silly component. I think it's called a friggin' frog. My friggin' frog was badly positioned. I like that. It should be the friggin' frog.
Yeah, the friggin' frog.
Now it works great. Turns out I'm a POS. Not gonna. You can spell that out yourself. My apologies to Mr. Gross and his family. Absolutely humiliating. Thanks, boys. Glad you didn't quit. So I want to know what was going on here. Was it too far forward? Too far back?
Details?
I'm trying to remember. He was having trouble getting a cut, but that's like much as I remember. So nice. Well, yeah, there you go. Make sure you check the friggin' frog.
Always the friggin' frog. All right, I got one here from Andy. He says, I just listened to episode 579 and the discussion on SketchUp modeling software, or the lack thereof. I thought I would pass on to you guys the website Layout.computer. I first heard of the website through one of the Lost Art Press Substacks. Anyway, this tool was originally built for people who build chairs, but the creator, Megan Fitzpatrick, only identified him as Nick, has added casework to the site, and you should 100% check it out.
Fine.
So, gents, I don't think you have checked this out. I have for like 5 minutes. It's neat. And I just kind of like it deserves more time than I'm going to be able to give it right now. But it is a very interesting tool. And I went to the casework immediately. It is really intuitive in terms of putting a divider in, then subdividing that into drawers and a door on this side.
It's like starting points too.
Yeah, and he gives you examples. So you get something that's pretty close to what you want to build. And then you could start with that and then make modifications to it. It's really interesting, and I think what I'm one thing I did was I was working with a case and I said, oh, well, let me go see what's going on with chairs. So I went into the chairs area and then I quickly realized, well, wait a minute, what about the case that I just made? And I wasn't clear on whether anything was cached or saved or done in some way where there's some level of permanence. So I have a lot to figure out with this thing. Some things are intuitive and some things are like, wait a minute, is that going to do what I think it does? Holy crap, look what it just did. This looks like it's potentially amazing. And I feel like this is something that definitely is approaching our design issues as woodworkers and furniture makers differently than anything else. And it definitely is doing a lot of like hand holding for you to get some of these things done. So I don't know that you're going to be able to design everything top to bottom, especially if you're incorporating lots of curves or very unique type work. But if you're trying to do the basics, and a lot of times that's what I use SketchUp for. I use it I'm building a case. I want 2 dividers. I want drawers here. I want them spaced this way. And sketching that all out in SketchUp is a giant pain in the butt. But having something like this that actually is doing a lot of the thinking for you already, and now you're just playing with the numbers, I was like, all right, this is interesting. So I want you guys, not you two, you could do whatever you want, the audience, you got to go here and give us some feedback on this. Like, knock this thing around a little bit and see what it can do. I'm going to play with it a little bit more as well, but I'm intrigued. I thought it was really well done, but I only spent about 5 minutes with it, but it was enough time for me to go, I need to get back in there and play with that a little bit.
This is really interesting.
So Andy, thank you for that. And Megan, thank you for that, because apparently she mentioned it on something Lost Art Press related.
This is
very cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's neat.
Mark, you can just do the rest of the show. I'm going to keep playing.
Yeah, I'm busy. I don't know what you do.
Okay, you guys have fun.
Yourself.
Let me know by the end of the show what you think.
I guess I have to come back here and read my thing now, which will be nowhere near as interesting. Sorry, Brandon. I wanted to offer a suggestion to the dehumidification crowd. I've been running my dehumidifier for about 6 years now, and it's running like a champ. The key is to tape an additional filter to the air intake filter. I typically will try to get a full-size filter and cut it into quarters, double both dimensions you need for your dehumidifier. It will give you a visual cue for when to replace it, which I needed to do myself. Additionally, using a clear tube to drain all the water will show you how good of a job you're doing. If the water is turning anything but clear, you need a better setup. I run mine into a pump in our utility room. From time to time, I replace the tube if it's getting gross.
Okay. So it seems like, because I've heard this too, we run a couple of dehumidifiers in the shop, and I've heard from people asking for advice that they've gone through, like every year they seem to have to buy a new one. And I guess if you're not covering the filter or you're not covering the intake with something that gets the dust, we are making dust in our shops, right? So stands to reason that would shorten the life. So I mean, that's kind of a straightforward tip, but a really good one if you're running a dehumidifier. I need to add one to mine. Frankly, I collect most of the dust and don't have a ton that sits in the air for too long. So I don't think I haven't seen any discoloration or anything like that, but it still can't hurt to have at least one that's still got good airflow, but will catch some of the finer dust. It's a good idea. Okay, got a quick voicemail here from Antonio regarding the discussion we had about Matt cutting himself and a sharp tool versus a dull one.
Hey guys, so I have some feedback regarding the discussion you had on the last episode on whether it's better to get injured with a dull tool or with a sharp tool. I asked my dad, who's a surgeon, and this is what he said. So it really depends on the size of the injury. If we're talking like a small incision, a small cut, like in Matt's case, in those cases, it's usually better to get injured with a sharp tool because it's going to be easier to fix it up, and the scar or the aftermath is going to be barely invisible. In cases where there's where it's a lethal injury that we're talking about, where there's risk of bleeding out, like amputations or similar, in those cases it's better to get injured with a dull tool because, and these are his words, not mine, all of the flappy bits of muscle and cartilage and everything that's left over, those help up close the wound and basically help you not bleed out. When in the cases of a clean cut, it would be much harder to stop the bleeding. So if you plan on cutting anything off, just use a dull tool.
Good to know.
This is a plan I make, you know.
Wow.
I was actually
put on a
when
schedule.
you came to my shop, you made fun of my dull chisels. Little did you know there was a strategy there,
I didn't know how
okay?
deep you were going to shove it into my body, apparently.
I may be going right for your kidneys.
Those are his amputation chisels. Those are not his fine work chisels. See, I was rather affirmed by that, because when he started saying that, I'm thinking through, why would it be bad to have I started thinking, oh, well, the rag get cut might make it easier to fold stuff over, like those little flaps. And I was really affirmed when even a surgeon called them flappy bits. So
all the little flappy bits.
Bits.
Sew itself together. Just jam some CA glue in there, squeeze the bottle, and you're good.
Perfect.
Yep. Internal
Dip it
bleeding
in
done.
some epoxy and hope it's quick setting epoxy.
Yep. I got some if you need some.
Nice.
All right. Well, we're going to get into what would normally be like our mid-roll ad. But this is our awkward pause mid-roll ad. What? Got kids texting me.
Time to go.
All right, guys. Good time for me to leave.
I guess we're done.
But no, we want to introduce our new sponsor. We're super excited about it, and we're super proud to say that we are partnering with Woodcraft, if you can believe it. Woodcraft!
Yay!
I wore a green shirt.
Nice.
It was a giveaway the whole time.
It was a hint. But no, we are so excited to have Woodcraft on board. You guys, if you don't already know them, you probably should. They are one of the most amazing nationally sort of present woodworking supply companies that you could find. Most major cities will have, a store, if not multiple stores around the country. I'm sure you can go to their website and find a map that tells you where all the local stores are. But they've been absolutely great. They've been a great resource for me as a woodworker, just starting out early on when I would go in and just look at all these amazing things that I don't understand yet.
I did that a lot too. Just
walking the aisles.
I'm just looking. I don't know. I'm dreaming. I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it looks cool.
That phase of a hobby is sometimes it's like some of the best times you'll ever have, when you're just getting infatuated with a new hobby and you find a store like Woodcraft and you can go in and walk around and just daydream the whole time and just get lost.
That was actually like my exposure to Woodcraft too. I was like the typical like Sears guy. Like that was the only place to go to get like actual woodworking tools.
Yeah.
The craftsman section, and you could get, your various supplies. And then I wandered in Woodcraft, and I liken that to like the first time I saw Woodworks. It's like, now this is real woodworking.
This is the next level.
Big ol', we can get into that fine woodworking versus not fine working. That was fine woodworking. And I was like, look at all this cool stuff that I don't have and I must have.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have it now.
For sure. Well, I thought it would be fun to kind of like just talk about a couple of experiences or things that we've had at Woodcraft stores in the past that I think would be interesting to people. I can tell you my first formal class, like actually paying and going to a class in woodworking, was at a Woodcraft store. And it was specifically, I don't know if the city is specifically Santa Rosa, but it's right around Santa Rosa. So I was, Nicole had arranged for me to take a private class with David Marks. And we went out there, and it just so happened that the local Woodcraft store was having a hand-cut dovetail one-day class. And it was taught by Kevin Drake from Glen Drake Toolworks.
Nice.
And he brought his little tight hammers there. And I was like, I must have these tight hammers.
And then you
did he have his two-handled saw yet? That was probably prior to that.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Is that thing work? Like, what's the deal with that?
I don't think so, because I don't think it's around anymore.
Not to get off on a tangent, but that thing look.
I feel like I tried it in 2008, and I was kind of like, "You're a nice guy, so I'm not going to tell you what I think." And I walked away.
It just kind of looks real dumb. Actually, what it looks like is it would be a April Fool's
thing
joke.
That someone exactly, yeah.
But the hammers, when he showed us these hammers, we were able to use them for the chiseling operations. I'm like, I must have them. And this was at a point when I did not have the money to pay for those things, but I ordered some anyway. So anyway, first formal class, I had 1 day to kill before I took my class with David, and this class was there. And Nicole's like, take a class. So I took this hand-cut dovetail class, the first one I ever took, and it was great. It was in the back of a Woodcraft store. I don't think the Santa Rosa store is huge. Who knows now? I mean, this is a long time ago. But I took this class, had a super duper time. Since then, I've done multiple book signings, meet and greets. I've taught classes at Woodcraft, and I've attended a lot of their community events. They often have like big parking lot like size community events, and you sometimes have like shows where people are showing off their woodworking and there's judging. I was a judge at one of those at one point, so I've got a pretty long history with Woodcraft, and that's why I'm super excited to have them on board. You guys have any fun or interesting tales, stories of days of yore with Woodcraft?
Similar to you, that was the first class that I took was at Woodcraft. Unfortunately, that particular store is no longer around. We have a new store, though, over in Timonium, Maryland, that I've only been to twice at this point. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. And from what I understand, that store is kind of wanting to do the community stuff that you're talking about as well.
Is anyone distracted by my dog?
Extremely, yeah.
Like, that looks like something I should be doing right now.
Right?
I'm like, that looks perfect.
Living his life.
It does look pretty fun, right? Look at that.
All right, there we go.
He scratches his back on anything he can, and everything is out there for everybody to
like
enjoy.
a 4-inch duct behind you, or what is that circular thing? It looks like duct work.
Listen, man, when you're approaching 50 and you exercise as much as I do,
is it a foam roller?
You need foam rollers everywhere.
It 100% looks like the end closest to me has like crimped ends to go into. Like, I'm like, okay.
It's a piece of Nordfab.
It's not Nordfab because it has crimps on the ends.
Yes, okay.
Instead of the rolled ends. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
It's internal rain gutters. It's all the rage now, Matt. You don't have them?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it was distracting the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I thought it might be.
Woodcraft, get used to this.
I'm glad
this
you did,
because
I was going to say something, but you were talking before and you sounded like you're saying something important. So I kind of let it
this
slide.
is a trial by fire for Woodcraft to see what this relationship is going to be like.
Very much.
All right, you were saying, Shannon.
So I built my very first Windsor chair in that Woodcraft class, and it was one of those building a Windsor chair in 2 days. So like we didn't do any of the turnings. It was very much kind of quite a kit build, but definitely we saddled the seat and we shaped probably half of the spindles. And that started from splitting out from a log, but did we actually shape the pieces we split out? No, they already had some later on. It's very much like watching a cooking show. There was a lot of parts along the way, but still we steam bent the bows. We didn't have time to steam bent. It was a sack back chair, but that was kind of a watershed moment for me because I was introduced to the spoke shave for the very first time.
Nice. Longtime
listeners, watchers of the Renaissance Woodworker know that the spoke shave is in my logo. It is my favorite tool. And I got that experience right at Woodcraft. And that Windsor chair still sits in my dining room. I think I built maybe 8 or 9 of them since then. So yeah, that was an influential moment in my life. Thanks to Woodcraft, I pretty much fell down the hand tool rabbit hole from that moment on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That was a very pivotal thing too, because I remember the early days. You were definitely more hybrid in the sense of like, I remember your table saw.
Yeah.
I wasn't hybrid at all.
I
was Norm Abram.
Full on, right?
Oh yeah.
But you then started to get more into the hand tools until you became crazy like you are now.
Yeah. And literally, if you go way, way back on the Renaissance Woodworker blog, remember those things? I document that class. It was probably 2008. And within months of that, I bought my first hand plane. I bought several spoke shaves, and it was all over at that point. So,
nice. Yeah. Well, what about you, Matt? Have you ever been to a Woodcraft store? You're very busy.
Yes, Marc, I have.
You might not have time to go.
Yes.
They don't sell garage springs there, so we know that.
That's true. I didn't go there today, so they don't
sell tile or wet saw.
They might. I don't know. Anyway,
it's true.
Yes, I going back to our earlier discussion about like just going and daydreaming. I didn't used to live in the city or around the Woodcraft store we have now. I lived in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Lindsay was up here going to law school. So I would visit her on the weekends, and one of the things we would do, usually on Saturday morning, was drive to Woodcraft.
Oh, that's so fun for her.
Yeah, I know. I'm one
That's so romantic.
No wonder you guys got married.
I have a lot of pictures of us going on dates to Woodcraft because it's like okay, I haven't seen you. I think we did like every other week. We would visit each other. It's like I haven't seen you in 2 weeks, so it's not really like what we're gonna do. It's just more like we're together. So it wasn't like that big of a deal that I was going to Woodcraft. But we just go there. We just like just follow me around looking at stuff. Her favorite thing was the Ghosty, which is the dust collector with the top bag filter, and it looks like a ghost on top.
Yeah,
that was one of her little things she would see. And they had this giant slab of zebra wood there, and
it's still there. Probably
it didn't move. It finally left at some point, maybe like 5 years later or something when I stopped seeing it there, but it was kind of fun to be like, okay, there's this piece of wood that she loves, is really cool, that I would never be able to afford. And it's there all the time, and just kind of daydream about it or whatever. But as far as pivotal things go, Woodcraft sold me the jointer planer that Marc hates. That
cool.
That actually pulled me down the rabbit hole of getting to the point of being able to produce my own lumber. Because before then, I was buying S4S at the home center, and I was like, there's a couple of people selling rough sawn lumber around me on Craigslist if I only had some way to dress it. So I was in town that weekend. I stopped by. They actually had a display model that they were getting rid of. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to save some money and get this display model one. And the nice folks there that sold it to me, they carried out and put it in the trunk of my car.
Look at that.
Yeah.
What a deal.
It was amazing. It was like,
couldn't wait to get rid of it.
I got carried.
Finally, a sucker's born every day.
I think every time we talk about this, like it's not a good machine, but it got me somewhere.
It was a stepping stone, right?
It's 100% a stepping stone. It paid for itself like instantly in the first project, and it sent me down to become the woodworker crazy person I am now, pulling logs out of people's yards and building a sawmill in my driveway.
Yeah.
Like if I look at things that like influence the bigger things in my life, that moment of like, I bought this jointer planer, just influenced the rest of my woodworking career.
Sure, yeah.
It's weird how that works.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh,
good story.
I love
that's
them
a romance built on Woodcraft.
it is. It was a romance.
It actually is, yes. We spent a lot of time there. I have a lot of pictures of us like taking selfies in the Woodcraft store here in Minneapolis.
Here we are in the wood aisle.
Oh, yes. I love that you took picture.
Absolutely. I'm like, here's us with the dust collector.
That's so great. I love it.
Lindsay's got the same picture sent to her friends. Matt said he was going to get me some wood this weekend, and I didn't think he meant this.
Whoa. Hey, it's a family show.
Hey now. Why not both?
Just setting
They're not mutually exclusive. Just saying.
With the new sponsor.
Yeah, good job. All right, so just, bit of business so you guys know what to expect, how this is going to run. It's an audio podcast. There's only so many things we can do when it comes to incorporating a sponsor, but we will do things very similar to what we've done in the past. There will be some messaging coming from Woodcraft, but it's always going to be stuff we think you guys would be interested in, stuff that maybe even is local for you. If they're having events at local stores, we want to let you guys know about that. And it's hard to say exactly where things are going to go because we're just starting this relationship, and it's a conversation that will evolve over time, but we want you guys to be along for the ride because obviously we're nowhere without you listening, so we want to make sure we're always doing a good service for you as well. I do want to be clear, because the way we do things when we have an integration with a sponsor, it's real hard to pull that out of the show in a sense of editing and what we do on Patreon. So Patreon will still be there. The ad-free version will still be there, but we're talking about the ads that the host tacks on. You won't have those at Patreon. The red ads that we do inside the show, those will still be there, but we try to make those informative, entertaining, and just, in some way useful to you guys.
Like
so we think
it's Matt's dating life.
Yes,
I can guarantee that with everyone.
Learn more about how romantic it is.
How to have a happy marriage starts with Woodcraft.
There you go. And t-shirts that say that would be good. All right, so just to be clear, so you know what that means if you are a Patreon subscriber, because we still appreciate your support there. So awesome! I'm super excited about this. We look forward to having many fun shows and introducing to you just some cool stuff going on at local Woodcraft stores. It's going to be a blast.
Welcome aboard, Woodcraft.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our questions because we've got some good ones here. I've got one here from David the Dog Trainer. Why do stains suck is what he wants to know. I'm sure we've all have our opinions about traditional wood stains. I just recently finished a hall tree coat rack and bench for my in-laws, and they want to stain the piece to match the wainscoting beadboard pattern on their walls. They gave me the same stain that they used, and it turned out awful, like so bad. Personally, I have always hated staining, but dyes seem more consistent and professional. But where do I start learning about this? I'd rather not stain, but for those in my life, my wife, family, etc., that want items stained and dyed, how do I make it not suck? Thanks in advance. From West Virginia. My stepdad was from West Virginia. I've been there quite a few times. It was very hot and humid because it was summer. And my brother got a leech on his foot from a river.
Great story,
right?
Great story, Mark.
Great
I'm just
story.
going to keep going.
Tell more stories.
Okay. This one time in West Virginia. So for me, I'm just going to give you a couple of tips that made this process suck less for me. Can't solve the issue with the coat rack deal that you're dealing with right now because you're obviously kind of stuck with a stain that they selected, unless you want to do some kind of color matching and pick a different item, a different stain material. But for me, the things that made staining suck a little bit less, don't get me wrong, still sucks, but this is a little bit less. First of all is the product you're using. When I started using General Finishes General Finishes dye stain, not gel stain. I mean, the gel stains actually are pretty good now that we mention it. But the dye stains, they just work really, really well. I almost always get good results with them. So I don't know what it is in their proprietary formula, but this is a pre-mixed dye, and I think there's just a little bit of a binder in there so that when it goes on, it's more, stuck to the surface so that your top coat isn't going to necessarily cause any bleeding or pull that off. It lays down a nice, relatively nice, even coat, and I've always had good luck with it. So I'll throw gel stains in there too. If you want to use some of their gel stain products, those work really well, tend to give you good, even application coverage. And, the product, the quality of the product and the type of product can make a difference in how well it applies and then what it actually looks like. The other thing I did was I learned to spray via HVLP. So in a lot of cases, you could take one of those dye stains, cover the whole thing, or at least cover a huge section of the project, and quickly come in and wipe off the excess. Take all the drips away, wipe it off. That is a great way to stain, and stain fast. Like, you can get it done very quickly. You just have to have the right environment to be able to put that much atomized stain into the air. But that has always worked like really, really well for me. The other thing is hand applying. If you're going to apply by hand, this is a fairly new product. There might be other things comparable to it, but I've never seen stain go on as consistently and evenly as when I used one of these new Makers stain pads. I've talked about them on the Wood Whisperer a few times. I love these things, specifically for oil-based stains. I can't speak for water-based. For oil-based stains, it just applies like a dream. It's just so even. It makes the whole thing so much easier, so I would look into that. And most importantly, I would avoid the cans of Minwax and brushes. You can get it done, and people use those products all the time, and they can get good results, but I've never found a way to do it that I didn't hate. So I generally will use just higher quality coloring agents and different methods to apply it that are more conducive to the way that I work. You guys have any other quick tips or suggestions to make it suck a little bit less?
I'll say you don't even have to go so far as HVLP. That first Windsor chair that I was just talking about, I put General Finishes dye. Now, granted, it was dye, not stain. It's much smaller pigment particles, but I just put it in a spray bottle. Water-based, and I just sprayed it because you're thinking like all the spindles and all like the little nooks and crannies.
Yeah, you're just
trying
dousing
to get
it.
Yeah, so I literally just sprayed it down and walked away.
Smart.
And it evaporated off, and I didn't need anything quite so fancy as an HVLP. It was just hand power.
Oh yeah. How about you, Matt?
My sound effect.
I don't use stains. So
Attaboy.
there's that.
If I'm coloring, it's going to be paint.
Avoid them.
I think you have to be conscious of the species you're using as well. The coarser the grain, the more open pored, the more it's going to look like crap, frankly. But at the same time, the really close grain stuff doesn't take color really well. So you're going to have to go with a fine particle dye over a stain. Like trying to stain maple sucks because it just won't hold it very long. And if you're trying to get that kind of even, consistent look, it's really hard to pull off on oak, without doing pore filling or something like that first. So, yeah.
Another tip, totally forgot, can't talk about stains and dyes without talking about blotch prevention. So certain woods are just going to be blotchy. My guess is when he says it looks like crap with what he's working on right now, could have been a situation where it just blotched like crazy. So if you don't know what that is, I've got a video for you. Shannon, if you can, make sure this goes into the notes. There's a video I did on making a DIY blotch prevention formula. I call it Marc juice because I like to make people uncomfortable. And if you apply that before you apply your stain, it can make a world of difference in the even coating and just like not having dark and light spots and things like that. So you definitely want to be familiar with blotch prevention as part of your coloring strategy.
Marc juice.
Yeah.
Like Christian Beck's magic lotion. Just gives me eerie
I want
vibes.
people to have chills whenever they talk about it.
That's exactly what I just had for those listening. This is from Steve. He says, I'm building dining chairs and have angled joints. My question is, will my tenons be strong enough if I'm angling up to 10 degrees? Most angles are only 5 degrees, but the angle between the side aprons and the back legs is 10 degrees. Forums have not been much help. Ooh, surprise. Because it tends to just be an argument between the power tool guys, angled tenons, and the hand tool guys, angled mortises, yelling at each other that they are right and the other guys are idiots. Then again, forums have their place. It's always fun. Forums are good for popcorn. It will be far harder for me, a power tool guy, to angle the mortises. So is a 10-degree tenon strong enough, or will that run into short grain enough to be too weak for a chair? Love the show. Keep up the good work. So the answer does depend a lot on what the species, but yeah, 10 degrees to me is pushing it. So what I would tell you, and I promise you I'm not going to move into a hand tool solution, but what I will tell you, I actually learned from a hand tool guy that what made the most sense was kind of a hybrid solution. This was actually former master of the Anthony Hay shop in Colonial Williamsburg. And he actually said, so if we're talking about the aprons into your back legs, start with a thicker piece of lumber for that side rail. And you can almost cut the tenon in line, so unangled entirely, and shape the rest of the wood into the angle that you want. So you can compromise it. Maybe you end up only with a 2 or 3 degree angle, but you're essentially tapering the wood. You've got a thicker block. Maybe instead of starting with a 4/4 piece, you're starting with an 8/4 piece, and you're essentially sculpting that rail into shape, and it allows you to keep the tenon more in line with it. The same thing also applies when you've got compound angles. So you may have a rake where those rails angle out from the back leg, but they may also splay outward at the same time. So maybe the tops or the bottoms are tilted at a slight angle, and trying to figure out that math is just kind of ridiculous. So think of this the same way as like building a Maloof chair, where you build everything just kind of square and blocky, and then you come back and you shape all those curves. That's a great way to end up, if not a straight tenon, or you can split the difference and maybe end up with a 5-degree angle tenon and get that rest of that angle by trimming off the wood. So one way to think of that is maybe you're putting a blind face tenon, in other words, a tenon with no shoulder, on one face, and then on the opposite face, you're putting that blind face of the tenon there. So you can actually cut through that cross section of the boards. This is really hard to describe in audio. I'm not really doing a good job visually either. So, but yeah, that was a good old fashioned 18th century cabinet or chair maker's trick. Don't deal with the angles, just shape the angle.
That's pretty neat though.
Yeah,
well, I think this is a trap that a lot of, let's say, like the newer joinery methods that are out there, like the domino, you try to solve this problem with the domino, and the only thing you could really do, I guess there might be a way to jig it up to do something else, but generally speaking, you are putting your mortises perpendicular to the place where they meet, right? So whatever the angle is where they meet, that mortise will always be perpendicular, which means if it's on a bit of an angle, that you are angled downwards. And I've seen a lot of mid-century modern furniture with a lot of 5, 10, 15-degree legs being joined into aprons with the domino, and there's nothing really accounting for the fact that now that has a downward angle. And I wonder how many pieces of furniture over time with weight on them may fail. I've got a table or a desk that I did for Nicole using dominoes, and it has that kind of splay of the legs, and the apron in the front has dominoes going into it. And with, being on a, what do you call it? Like a laminate floor is very slippery. And what I really need to do is get some kind of rubber non-slip feet on there to stop it from having this like instinct that it wants to, with weight, push those legs and have them just fall right out, right? So those joints will, over time, separate. And I think it's really important, especially in a chair, to figure this out. And these quick joinery solutions may look like they're going to do the job, but if you're not paying attention to the angle of that tenon, it may not be as strong as it could be. For sure. So I think Steve's on the right track for even asking this question.
I think with a chair too, though, you have to look at the whole thing as like an entire thing, not just like it's just one joint. So if you're going to be doing like on the chair kits that I have, that angle to the back leg is like 20 something degrees because the rear leg is rolled outwards. And on the ones that you have, Mark. Yeah. So that angle is 20. I think it's 22 or so. I don't know. It's compound. It's 22 and then 2 degrees down because the back slide. The seat slopes back. There's too many numbers. Anyway, it's bigger than this that he's talking about, but we have the corner blocks in there, which actually triangulate the whole corner and pulls the rail back into the whole rear rail assembly. So I don't know if I'd worry about it. I mean, even at that, I wouldn't be that worried about it if you're going to be doing some other sort of thing in there to encourage more strength within that corner where that rail meets the leg, meets the rear rail. If you have a corner block in there, it also helps to add some more strength, some more rigidity to the whole thing. If you have corner blocks in the front, triangulating those connections as well, then you have a much more thing. And then the seat is also attached to there, holding everything together. So there's a lot
of distribution,
all there,
forces.
kind of all working together. I think
once you make that square or trapezoid, and I always refer to it as completing the circuit, like you get so much more strength. You know, 3-sided box isn't all that strong, but you throw that fourth wall in, and now you've got a lot more structure.
The seat is a skin too, so you get like a torsion box kind of thing going too. So I think when we look at like, oh, this joint's stronger than this joint, whatever, you can't look at it in a vacuum because all these things just so intertwined together to create the entire thing. Unless you're literally creating some piece like a floating shelf that's like it's got an upright and it's got a rail coming out of it, and that's the only thing there. Okay, yeah, that in that instance, yes, you can look at it like, is this stronger than this versus this? But in the cases of actual assembled pieces of furniture, it's an amalgamation of everything else that's going on together to create that solid unit.
Yeah,
the final piece.
Good point.
Good answer, Matt.
Put that down. Done. What time is it? 1/16/5/4/2025. Marc complimented Matt. All right.
Man, I compliment you all the time.
I'm good. I know.
Just not publicly.
I know. This is why I'm like, I'm so excited. Finally, I got a good point.
Good job.
Thank you. Are we done? Should I move on to my question from Paul?
Your question.
Now?
Yeah, you should.
All right. Paul says, greetings from Western Wisconsin, Matt's neighbor just across the river. Where's the river? It's right that way. Hello, Paul.
Hello, river.
Hello, the river guy over there. Okay, I have a green ash tree that got hit by the emerald bug. What would you recommend doing with it? Salvage part of it and have it slabbed out. It's 20 feet long and 24 inches in diameter. Would the bug still be active in it? I've never worked with ash before. Have you guys used the wood to burn in my wood-fired oven? Yeah, your workbench is ash, isn't it? Yeah, yes. Okay. How is the smoke flavor? Does it burn hot? Have it hauled away. I guess it's the last option is have it hauled away. You can have it hauled here. I'll take it. Marc, I hope your family's doing well. Glad to see you back. Thanks, Paul from Hudson, Wisconsin.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about smoke.
Where'd I go?
I don't know where you went.
I mean, much to everyone's dismay, I haven't gone anywhere.
Did you go somewhere fun? Here. Tell us about it. I want to know.
Oh, boy.
I just read the question. I don't know.
Yeah. I think he might have been talking about WoodTalk because we did take a little bit of a break.
Matt's just the Ron Burgundy of the show.
I'm just here.
Put in front of him.
I'm just here enjoying it. Let's work backwards. Have you smoked with this, Marc? I don't know anything about smoking meat with different woods. So is this a smoking wood ash at all?
I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be. A lot of times with smoking woods, we want to avoid the stuff that has like a lot of extra things in it, like resins and things that might just put No, that's good. That's just extra protein.
Okay.
But in something like that, a clean burning domestic species, it's not oily, doesn't have like tons of extra resin and pitch and all that crap in it. I don't see why it wouldn't, but I don't know what the flavor profile is. You don't often find people smoking with ash, but I would probably, like if I had access to it, I would probably bank on it being just a good base level smoke flavor. Like I often will keep a lot of oak around, and of course, it's going to burn, it's going to make smoke. It's not going to have as characteristic of a flavor as other types, like a hickory might, but it burns hot and it's good to keep the fire going. So I would 100% not turn down a load of ash if I knew it was, cared for and it doesn't have chemicals on it and all that stuff.
Well cared for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got to be just right for smoking.
Whisper to it gently and
it's just like woodworking. You don't want it too wet. You don't want it too dry. All that stuff. So yeah, that's the smoking side of things. I would take it.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, as far as workability goes, I think it's a great wood to work with. And as far as looks go, I think it's like a prettier oak. It has kind of the same grain pattern structure as kind of oaks do, or like red oak, for instance. But it's this nice blonde. Like the heartwood's pretty blonde, but then the sapwood's blonde, and the heartwood's got kind of this light amber pinkish kind of hue to it, which I think is gorgeous. Projects that I've made out of ash, I have the waterfall table we did over in the guild many years ago. That was out of ash. It's beautiful.
I just watched that
table.
recently, Matt.
Why would you watch that?
Looking for tips on epoxy. Guess what, Matt?
There are none.
It didn't help.
It didn't help.
Well, see, when I did that, I poured it as a single pour, and then I made it a waterfall. It was a little bit different. But it was not helpful, Matt.
No, it
Way
was
to
beautiful.
leave me astray on that one.
No point for you this time.
And then the other bigger ash project that I've done is I made the flooring at my old house. That was out of ash that held up incredibly well. It's a very hard wood, worked really well for flooring, and I think it's worth salvaging. One of the things that I'm trying to do is get as much of it as I can before I can't get it anymore because it's all dead.
What's the story with the bug in it, though?
That is the emerald ash borer, so it's been finding its way, I guess, westwardly and northernly or whatever for the last decade or whatever. So it's already gone through everything like out east already, and I think it just got here to Minnesota in 2019 or 2020. It was like the first confirmed it's here things. It takes a few years to actually kill the tree, but the bugs, they eat the cambium layer of the tree. So they basically starve the tree to death, and then they go on to the next one because once this tree's dead, there's nothing left to eat. So okay, we'll go find someone else to flesh eat for a bit until that one dies, and they just keep finding their way, whatever. So this is the first year where you look around and there are no living ash trees left. As the leaves are starting to come out now in the spring, all the other species are starting to get their leaves and everything. All the dead sticks, they're all just ash trees. They're literally everywhere.
So, I mean, in terms of the felled tree, are there things he needs to be concerned about with the bug?
Well, if you really want to know, turn into episode 103 of the Lumber Update, where I have an actual entomologist on the show to talk about the emerald ash borer. Mm-hmm. Or just say kiln drying is the only way to be certain that you've gotten rid of it fully. They are there. Yes, they technically don't like the heartwood, but bugs don't have a universal sense of things. Hey, we're out of food. Let's go find another tree. That tree is their entire galaxy. So, we're out of sapwood. Should we die or should we eat this heartwood? They eat the heartwood. You will find bug trails throughout that tree. And it sounds like he's air dried this stuff. It certainly hasn't been kiln dried. You really got to hold that. I
don't think he's done anything with it yet. He hasn't done anything. It's a log.
That's right. It's a log.
Or it's a tree still.
Yeah, but there's no reason you can't use it. I think that's the biggest misconception is people are, it's infected. We've got to, chop it up. Well, first things first, mulching it sometimes actually spreads the bugs even further. Yeah. And then there's a lot of thought, you mulch it and then let the exothermic reaction of decay kill the bugs. Yes and no, that's not really that effective. The best thing to do with an ash borer infested tree that, frankly, there is no way to stop it. The trees they pretty much end up dying. Is just saw it into boards and throw it in the kiln. It's the best thing you can do. So go do that.
I'm hearing that a lot too. On my end, trying to find this stuff, a lot of the tree services are it's complete garbage because it's infested with bugs and it's full of stuff. But when you actually cut it open, a lot of times though, they haven't made it to the heartwood. They haven't made it anywhere. Not to say it's safe or whatever, but there aren't a bunch of it's not Swiss cheese inside this log. So as far as the sawmill side of things are concerned, it's almost irrelevant that it was killed by that. If you're doing edged boards for visually speaking, makes absolutely no difference if it was killed by the emerald ash borer or it was just felled out as a healthy tree.
The galleries are all pretty much in the sapwood itself. And I mean, there's a reason why thermally modified ash, which for those watching the video, I'm holding in my hand.
I use that too. I made that garden bench out of that stuff.
I remember
that stuff. Yeah.
You can thermal modify it.
I've done too many things.
Yeah. You're such a busy guy. You've been everywhere, done everything.
Or you could use it to prop up your laptop so that the camera is at the appropriate height. You don't get
that too. That's what I use my book for. propping crap up.
Like the one you wrote? You mean?
Yeah.
That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I got
funny.
extra.
Is that your
I'm using it
reference
as a
copy
doorstop
for when you
myself.
forget something?
Yeah, I got one right back there. I use it to level out the bike trainer. All right, so we got one more question. This is largely for the audience. If you guys know this, feel free to chime in, but I'm also particularly interested in this. Steve wrote in, and he says, my wife and I will hopefully be visiting Japan this fall. Details are still to be finalized. And as I plan out an itinerary for the trip, I was wondering if you guys have any suggestions for places to visit or things to do regarding woodworking in Japan. I have already added a Takanaka Carpentry Tools Museum in Kobe to the list of places, but any further recommendations would be greatly appreciated. I'm interested in this because we are trying, and I don't, just with health issues and finances, I don't know that we're going to make it happen this year, but my daughter is absolutely like infatuated with everything Japan and is like dying to go there. I would love to go there for various reasons. I love like the architecture and the food. It just seems like a cool place to visit. You want to come?
Yeah, let's make it like a group trip.
Sure. Yeah, just get your passport ready. We'll go. Yeah, we'll make a little WoodTalk little adventure. Anyway, I'm interested in this as well because I'm not sure like how easy that is to do when you're in a place like that and you're likely maybe hitting some touristy areas, how hard it might be to find some of those things that might be off the beaten path. So for the audience, if anybody has been and is familiar with and knows where Steve might be able to go, let us know. Write us in. What's our email address? woodtalkshow@gmail.com. And we'll read that information or send it to Steve if you have some feedback for him.
Ty and John and Ben, I know you guys are listening. They're Angel School members. They've been a lot of time in Japan and have posted in the community a lot about some cool stuff.
Oh,
so
good.
There's a lot there. I can't help you, but I'm looking at you three guys right now who are listening to the show right in.
Okay. Well, good deal. So there's a little homework for the audience. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, that's going to do it for us. And I want to remind you, the show is made possible by the generous contributions of our patrons, and we're now proud to be sponsored by Woodcraft.
Yay!
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah,
We are proud. I
Let's go.
didn't sound very proud. Yay!
What am I supposed to say
there
right
you
now?
go. A little bit better.
I don't know.
We
gotta get Todd-
minutes into the recording.
We're going to
Yay.
get Todd to insert like extra applause and fanfare to make that sound like a bigger deal.
We did it.
If you'd like to help out and get your name read on the show and also get that ad-free version of the show, head over to patreon.com/woodtalk. And Shannon, I think you have stuff to say.
I'll make this quick because remember, we have a poem after all of this.
Oh.
So don't go anywhere, but send
go
us your
anywhere.
questions. Send us your travel tips for Japan, woodworking related. Send all that to, what's our email address, Mark?
woodtalkshow@gmail.com.
woodtalkshow@gmail.com.
No idea.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Thanks,
Okay.
Todd. Good luck editing this one.
Oh, it'll be fun. All right, Todd, I need you to cue the music for me here. This is a poem written by ChatGPT that only cost a few gallons of crude oil to do this.
That's it.
It's called Grain and Voice. In dusty air where laughter rings, three voices carve with wit and grace. Marc, Matt, and Shannon crafting things. In every line, their joy we trace. God, this is stupid. Through tales of joints and finish gleam, they share their craft, their trials, their art. With Woodcraft's tools, they chase the dream. Each project born from passion's heart. A union forged in timber's name, where knowledge meets the finest gear. Together, building more than fame, a legacy both hold so dear. So here's to chats where wood is king, and to the store that fuels the flame. In every board and podcasting, their love for craft remains the same.
Wow. Wow, that last rhyme. Wow.
All right. So
Oh,
thanks
apologies
for
to Shakespeare for that last heroic couplet.
What just happened?
thanks for listening. My apologies. I understand this is what you have to deal with when you listen to the show, but we appreciate you enduring it because we know it probably hurts sometimes.
Very
Wood Talk,
painful.
now brought to you an iambic pentameter.
Anyway, all right.
know
Well,
what
thank
that
you for
was.
listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, I think.